Okay, Dave, thanks very much for joining us and for your time. First things first, can you explain to us what your role at Sound City is and what it entails?
I'm the CEO of Sound City. Some people would say I do nothing really, I kind of just shout and scream a lot of the time. I guess my job is, the strategic vision of the company really. Trying to steer us where we might want to be in the next 3 to 5 years, as well as, kind of working with the team to make sure that our short-term plans, that we fulfill those as well. I mean, I always describe ourselves as a matrix organisation, which means, there are no leaders. We all just roll our sleeves up and get involved where we can get involved.
And for those who aren't necessarily familiar, can you explain a bit about Sound City and what it is?
Sound City was started in 2008. It is a metropolitan festival, music festival, with multi-arts attached to that as well. And then the heartbeat of it is our business conference, which is called Sound City Plus, which attracts literally thousands of music business people from all around the world every year to discuss and debate different aspects of the music business.
In what ways has Sound City changed since you started in 2008?
It's grown a lot. It's we started in 2008 with a kind of a plan for where we wanted to be. We didn't quite imagine. Is that not too loud for you? The background noise over there. So you can note that we started in 2008 with a plan, really just to get us through that year, really. And 8 years on, 9 years on now, it's grown into what is the biggest metropolitan festival in the UK, and probably the most important business conference attached to that as well. And I think that's testament to the team that we have working on it. Everyone's really dedicated and focused in terms of what we're trying to achieve. And I think beyond that has been our international scope. So, for example, we don't just do events now in Liverpool, although Liverpool is our home and our main event. We also deliver events in Dubai, Korea, China, USA, Norway, and other places that we were invited to.
Apart from the obvious difference between a metropolitan festival and one maybe set in the countryside somewhere, what do you think makes a metropolitan festival special?
I actually prefer them to the greenfield festivals because I think you can do more with them. So, for example, we're now in a single part of the city on the Docklands. We moved that there in 2015. Before that, we used the fabric of the city centre, so not really black box venues, but lots of interesting spaces like car parks, cathedrals, warehouses, bombed out churches, cellars, anywhere we could take over and put a great sound system in and great lighting into to immerse our audience into a fairly unique environment to consume music and to consume culture. And I think that in itself is a completely different offer to standing in the middle of a field and consuming music in what is now a well-worn method, really. Greenfield festivals are pretty well-worn in terms of the ways that you can present music to a music-loving audience, really. Having said that, like I said, last year we moved it to the Docklands, and that was a challenge in some ways, because in some ways we've become a greenfield, not on a greenfield, but on a unique site. And so part of that was saying, how can we keep those elements, really? So we looked at how doing parties on ships, on boats, in warehouses, and really, really odd spaces to try and conjure up and to keep those elements that I've just tried to describe. I do think some greenfield festivals, though, now have caught up with that idea themselves. If you look at some of the work that Festival Number 6 do, and Wilderness Festival do, and Snowbombing do, and so on, I think they've taken it to a new level and reinvented greenfield festivals as well, to a similar way.
You mentioned there about the kind of development of how festivals might develop. Do you see any trends across festivals as a whole, or even just smaller metropolitan festivals? Do you see any trends that how festivals are developing now, or how they may develop in the future?
I think everybody has got a sense now that it can't just all be about lineups. If you look at if you go back 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I don't know how many festivals were in just the UK then, but one thing I do know for sure is there was a lot less than there is now. So what that tells us is the marketplace is getting more and more crowded. And so what that also means is that there are only so many certain amount of bands to go around, and artists that people can put on their lineups. So I think what you're beginning to see now is a kind of a congestion of certain bands, certain headliners that will play multi-festivals, not just in Europe, but in the UK throughout the summer season. And so that brings us to the next thing, is what do you do with festivals then to keep them interested? And I think what people are beginning to realise, what other promoters are beginning to realise, including ourselves, is that you have to look at the experience, and you have to look at how you immerse your audience in an experience that is far wider and far deeper and far more interesting than just watching a load of bands, you know. And I think that's kind of, if you look at where things are heading in an interesting way, that's certainly the bit that interests me, and the part that interests me, and where we would like to be seen as being at the forefront of that type of festival over the next 5 years.
Which brings us quite nicely on to Sound City Plus, which you've touched on. Can you explain a bit more about it and how it complements the festival itself?
Yeah, Sound City Plus is a business element, so it's really designed for those people in the business of music. And so by that we mean maybe people who are starting on the journey, so students or young people who have a burning ambition to be in the music business, be it managers, small record labels, young artists, wherever it might be, through to people my age and older really, who maybe worked in the business for an awful long time, more years than you want to imagine. And so the business experience that we design has to be relevant for that type of audience really. And so we construct a day of panels, keynotes, discussions, roundtables, and lots of kind of different opportunities to excite, invigorate, and to inspire the business audience that is taking place really, so that ultimately at the end of it they get to meet some interesting people, they hopefully get to learn some new things or get excited about a few things, and also meet people that they could hopefully do business with.
Are there any events or speakers that you've had on at Sound City Plus that have really, I mean obviously you program it, but that have really captured your imagination?
Oh God, loads. You know, so many, you know, I have my wish list like we do with bands every year really, of the people I would like to get to Sound City Plus so I can listen to them as much as anyone else. So I'm quite selfish in that way. So, you know, some really high points for me was John Cale, who we had a couple of years ago, you know, from the Velvet Underground, and also a kind of artist in his own right after the Velvet Underground. So that was, you know, I felt I was completely invigorated and excited and inspired by what John had to say during Sound City that year. Others were like Wayne Coyne last year from the Flaming Lips. Marquis Smith was a real high point from the fall. You know, was a wonderful in conversation that we did, and the list goes on really. Some of the in conversation pieces we've done have been, you know, I think I'm so proud of the work we put together on that.
How do you find the difference between programming Sound City itself and Sound City Plus?
Not a lot different actually. It's just the processes are absolutely simple, are absolutely the same in many ways. It's about emailing, picking up the phone, going to other events to try and, you know, secure the best speakers, the best keynotes, the best people that we can get to take part in the event, you know.
Yeah. And in your time working in the music industry and running Sound City, what changes have you seen in the industry, and how do you think they're impacting things?
Well, I think, you know, if you just look at the past 10 years, just in a microcosm of the last 10 years really, I think, well, slightly more than 10 years, probably the last 16 years. Sorry, I've got a friend who's joined us now. Hey, get down. The last 16 years, you know, since the internet began to have an impact on music business models, I think, you know, things have changed beyond, in ways that none of us could ever have imagined really. So if you take, for example, the record business is now in a state of free fall. who knows if it will ever survive or get back to the days, the halcyon days of the kind of the late 90s and pre that, you know, through the 70s onwards. You know, it's changed beyond belief, beyond recognition. I'm not sure it'll ever get back to those days really ever again.
Do you see those changes impacting festivals at all, or do you think festivals live in their own? Or do you think festivals live in?
Never worked with that.
Or do you see festivals kind of existing on their own, or do you see them being impacted by those changes as
well? Well, they have been impacted. Yeah, festivals have certainly been impacted by those changes. Try and keep it down there. Have been impacted by those changes. You know, I mean, one simple example is booking artists. So we offer fees for artists. In the past, with emerging bands and bands lower down the bill, or even some of the headliners as well, you know, we could get them for a certain fee without mentioning what those fees might be. Now the fees have gone up. The reason the fees have gone up in many instances is because where in the past those artists were getting tour support from the record labels, now they don't get that tour support from the record labels anymore. So it means the artists are on less money, so the artists want more money from the promoters and the festivals because they're not getting the money from the sources that they used to get it from in the past. And so that has a big impact upon us, what we can offer for artists, how many artists we can put on. Ultimately that has an effect on ticket price then, because we're commercial businesses, so we've got to break even at best and make some money. So where does that money come from really? You know, we've got to find a way of maximising it from ticket revenue. It means we have to work with sponsors in different types of ways. So for example, in the past, whereas you would always want to work with sponsors, but the promoters used to have a lot more power than we have now, because sponsors now know that they're an important part of the financial jigsaw to make these events happen, and so because of that they want a lot more for their money. So you know, just a simple thing like the record business has had a huge impact upon festivals and on lots and lots of other areas of the music business.
Dave, thank you very much.